The Trump administration is aggressively resetting Washington's tense relations with Moscow, pushing to end the Ukraine war in the highest profile U.S. Russia engagement in years. Kyiv is isolated and is now pointing fingers at Washington, its biggest backer, while America's European allies are left out in the cold, unnerved by a diplomatic policy shift that could redraw the geopolitical landscape.
For over a decade, the West and Russia have locked horns in a modern Cold War. But with Trump back at the White House, Washington appears to be switching sides. The Biden administration funneled billions into Ukraine's war effort, arming Kyiv with lethal weapons from Atakam's missiles to HIMARS rocket systems. Now the Trump administration refuses to call Russia's invasion a war, branding it merely a conflict. President Trump shows minimal concern for Ukraine's cries for exclusion, suggesting Kyiv was to blame for the conflict. Listen to Trump's blunt message blaming Ukraine for the war.
And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land.
Trump's words are music to Moscow's ears. Speaking in Russia's parliament, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov lauds Trump for his stance.
President Trump, when it comes to statements, has mentioned NATO expansion. He is the first, and so far, in my opinion, the only Western leader who has publicly and loudly said that one of the root causes of the Ukrainian situation was the previous administration's pushy line of pulling Ukraine into NATO.
With Moscow and Washington closing in, Kyiv is clearly feeling left out. No Ukrainian officials were present at the Riyadh negotiations, nor any European leader. The stark shift has left Kyiv stunned. Ukrainian President Zelensky is now venting his frustration.
President Trump, with great respect for him as a leader of the people, which we respect very much, the American people, who constantly support us, unfortunately, lives in this disinformation space.
Beyond Ukraine, Trump's diplomatic maneuvers at breakneck speed have stunned Europe. Traditional protocols lie in ruins as Washington bypasses decades of consultation frameworks. The prospect of a Putin-Trump summit looms like a storm cloud over NATO's future, threatening to redraw global allegiances in ways unimaginable just months ago. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
We're now being joined by Joachim Bitterlich, former German ambassador to NATO. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for joining us on WION and welcome back. What impact might this U.S. policy shift have on America's European allies moving forward?
Well, it's true. It's a dramatic shift we observe since some days now. And when you look at what Trump has been mentioning there on your TV show, that the deal had been possible. Yes, a deal had been possible, what I call 3 years ago or 4 years ago in the last minute. But the price had been neutralization of Ukraine, but maintaining its integral territory, including perhaps a special solution for the Crimea. And an association to the EU and association towards the eastern side as a bridge between West and East. And now the question is whether Trump is aiming at such a solution or if he's just accepting what I call the actual situation. And this means for the Russians, you have seen what Lavrov is telling in the Duma. It's an euphoric Moscow now, and they feel back again at equal footing with Washington. And that's the key for them. And this equal footing for Moscow means let's push for the withdrawal of the US from Europe and withdrawal from NATO. And this, the Europeans have got many wake-up calls in the last years, but didn't wake up Europe. The Europeans need now urgently a real concept to be again, let's say, to impress Moscow and to impress Washington.
And Mr. Ambassador, a two-part question. What are Ukraine's options at this point? And second of all, will Europe be able to provide security guarantees for Ukraine should the United States stop doing that in terms of aid?
Well, I begin with your second question. You're right. I do not see European security guarantees without an American security guarantee. I can't see this. And the Europeans are not, let's say, prepared to such a solution today. And I don't see it. This would be a weaker side. And in order to have a real counterface to Moscow, the Europeans need the US. It's clear. And Kyiv is, let's say, in a bad shape at the end of the day. And way out, I still hope that Trump is trying, let's say, to reach the integral territory of Ukraine again, and not perhaps in a federal way, as we have been discussing 4 years ago or 5 years ago. But I've doubts about this. What's the problem is balance of power is changing. The Russians are back again there. The Americans seem to have accepted this. I don't see a strategy of the Americans when Rubio is talking about a deal, fair, enduring, sustainable, and acceptable for all parties. I get a bit smile about this. Is it serious or are these diplomatic words? Huh?
Yeah, so many questions left unanswered. It's hard to imagine what's going on in the mind of Volodymyr Zelensky at this point, and the people of Ukraine as well. Of course, we'll be following this story very closely. I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador.
With pleasure, as always.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.